All right. What is going on, everybody? My name is Hunter Sutherland with LS Lures. Welcome back to another Tackle Talk Tuesday. Tonight we're going to be talking about one of my favorite things to do to get bites that nobody's talking about right now. I don't feel like it gets looked at a whole lot. You know, everybody on the internet right now wants to tell you that you got to throw some kind of sneaky bait, or you got to downsize or upsize or do whatever. Tonight's video, we're going to be talking about doing exactly what you're supposed to for most situations without doing anything weird or crazy or spending a bunch of money on Japanese weird stuff to get more bites, you know. But we're going to get into that in just a second, okay? So thank you for watching. Thank you for clicking on this video. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. It's going to be a really fun one, and hopefully we're going to teach you guys some stuff about fishing a jig, and this applies to all baits, but it's going to get you a lot more bites. It's going to catch you a lot more fish, and it's going to make you a lot better angler, especially as our lakes continue to get beat up, our fish continue to get smarter. This is just a really good habit to get into and to learn and to get used to it, accept it. It sounds weird and crazy, but whatever. We're going to jump into that, all right? But before we do, if you guys have watched any of our videos, you know the drill. Every single Tuesday, before we talk about all the meat and potatoes and the good stuff in these videos, we've got a dang sale for y'all. It starts pretty much after this video gets posted. It goes until Friday at midnight. This week, we're not doing anything crazy for Black Friday because apparently every company on the market started their Black Friday last week, and we're late to the party. You guys have been buying the heck out of all of our stuff, and I would really like to stockpile some stuff for Cyber Monday. We've got a huge drop going on Saturday, probably our biggest ever. Honestly, it's one of the coolest projects I've worked on in a while. I'm super excited to release it to you guys. It's a winter jig box with everything you need to catch fish and big fish right now as it's cold. It'll catch them all the way until there's ice on half the lake there. So be sure to keep an eye out for that on Saturday, but that's been taking up most of my time. And then we're gonna do a big old Cyber Monday sale coming up here on Monday. So be sure to wait for that. We're gonna have our inventory pretty much built back up by then. It's gonna be great, so keep an eye out. But this week's sale from Tuesday until Friday, for those of you who don't know, we partnered up, we added Powerhouse Lithium to our website here a little while ago. It's been super cool to work with them, been awesome. They're great folks over there, but we are running 15% off all of their batteries, everything we've got on our website from now, basically when you're watching this video, until this Friday at midnight, the day after Thanksgiving. So save yourself a ton of money if you're looking to swap everything out in your boat, upgrade, have batteries that'll last you all dang week on the water. Like, these things are legit. They're seriously sweet batteries, and we're gonna save you a bunch of money. If you just click that little link in the description below, head on over to our website, check everything we've got out. We got a bunch of different stuff by them. It's all great. So be sure to check that out, save a bunch of money with 15% off, and that goes until Friday at midnight. But now that we're done with this week's business pitch, you know, I got to do it. It's my job. I make my living selling fishing lures and doing that stuff, making videos for you guys. So now that we're done with all that, we can talk about the fun stuff. And that is going to be, we're going to call it flipping insanity, okay? Because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And that's pretty much what this is. What we're going to be talking about tonight is going to be making the same flip or a flip in a general area or cast, whatever you're doing there. And it doesn't really matter what the bait is. For tonight's sake, we're going to be talking about flipping, but we're going to be talking about making 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 flips to a target, expecting to get bit, right? Because most videos on the internet right now are going to tell you, oh, if they're not biting, you got to downsize and you got to throw something crazy that nobody can buy, and it's $20 for a fuzzy dice bait, and that'll get them to bite the first time. And you know, that's great, and there is some truth to that, that throwing something completely different is a great way to get a lot of bites, and sometimes, you know, get the bites that you need. But one thing that not a lot of folks want to talk about right now, and that is super effective, and I don't know if they're just keeping it under wraps or not a lot of folks do it, whatever, but one thing that I've found success with for the past, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years now, and won a ton of money off of, is making the same flip to high percentage targets more times than you ever thought necessary. You know, most guys are like, oh yeah, you really got to pick it apart. You know, you make a couple flips and then you move to the next one. Well, when we pick things apart, we pick it apart, right? Like, we're talking make the same flip 3 times and then move over a foot and do the same thing, right? Because these fish are getting smart. And when you're in an area that is so beat up that those fish have seen it all, there's only one way to get them to bite sometimes. And that is beating them in the face with it enough times that they say, I can't take it anymore. I'm going to destroy this thing. And lucky for us, they don't have hands. They don't have anything that they can box it with, right? Their only weapon is their mouth. And so whether they're eating it out of anger, eating it out of frustration, or they're just like, you know what, fine, dude, get it over with. It doesn't really matter, right? As long as it works. So today we're going to be talking about what situations I really lock down and make so many flips, what I look for when I'm doing that, you know, and why I do it, right? We're going to break that all down. We're going to explain to you why to do it, when to do it, so that way you guys aren't doing it all the time, because sometimes it's a total waste, right? And we'll talk about that, but we're going to get into that right now. I'm going to quit rambling. I say so many words, talk way too fast, but it is what it is. So first of all, guys, when we're talking about doing this, the first thing that really kind of keys me into it is when I'm in an area that is getting absolutely beat to piss. So for those of you who don't know, I'm from Nebraska. I've grown up in Nebraska. I fish a lot of tournaments in Nebraska. Nebraska is not known for bass fishing. The only thing that we've ever had bass fishing wise is Denny Brower, and he got the hell out of here, and Ben Milliken, and he got the hell out of here too, and Andrew Flair, and I don't really know how much he fishes anymore. But anyway, regardless of all that jazz, what we've got is a bunch of lakes that aren't very good. I mean, you guys are well aware of that. If they were good, more people would come here to fish. Nobody comes to Nebraska to fish. So there's a lot of pressure from the guys who live here, and there's like 3 good areas on every single lake, because most of it is just a blank expanse of silt and crap, and the 3 pockets that have enough depth have a couple bass in them, and that's where everybody's going to go to fish. So one thing that we've learned fishing here is that if you're going to get bit, sometimes you have to make fish bite that don't want to bite. And one of the best ways to do that without switching to some crazy Japanese dice bait, you know, because we're not going to do that. One of the best ways to do that is to drive them absolutely insane. And that means flipping all of the high percentage targets in the areas that you know there are fish as many times as you possibly can. So if there's a lay down or you flip through the area and you've caught everything, I don't generally start my mornings with this, okay? When I'm in an area, say I'm in a pocket that has a bunch of wood in it, right? The first thing I'm gonna do when I roll up there in the morning is I'm gonna fish it like I normally fish it, okay? Because I wanna cover as much water as possible. I wanna catch as many of those active fish that are actively feeding as possible. This technique comes into play when you fish through the area normally. You've caught all those fish that are going to be picked off, that they take one flip and they swim over and they eat it and they do what they're supposed to do, right? Now we're going to get into catching the fish that don't want to bite, and that is going back to those pieces of cover and flipping everything as many times as you possibly can, okay? And what I've seen happen with this is where you'll make 5, 6, 7 flips, and you're like, I've flipped to this one nook, like this high percentage spot so many dang times now, there's no way there's a fish in there. And you flip in one more time and you're like, all right, let's get out of here. This isn't working. Like, I know there's fish in the area, but this isn't working. And you like look at a bird, or you wave to your buddy who's also flipping the cove, and then your other buddy and your other buddy, because there's 17 boats in there. And then you look back and your line is 3 feet to the right and you go, that's insane. That's been 9 flips to that spot. And I think what it is, guys, is these fish don't want to bite, right? They've seen every bait. They've got their spot. They've seen the other 3 boats come by. And again, most guys, they're flipping, and what they're used to and whatever is they do what they did in the morning. They just go by and they make a couple flips. And if they're going to get bit, they think they're going to get bit within the first 2 or 3 flips, and then they move on. Well, for those fish that don't want to bite and they're sitting there, if you put your jig in front of them enough times and that jig comes in and it stirs up the silt or whatever, it stirs things up, its presence isn't wanted, and it bumps into that log and it shoots off, it's gonna get fed up, right? And so a lot of times what you're gonna see is if you know that you're in an area with fish, or you've gotten a couple bites in there and you're like, yeah, this is like, I know they're in here, I don't have anything else to do. Lock it down, boys. Just flip and flip and flip and flip and flip. And I'm not talking make the same flip and do the same thing. Generally, when I'm doing this, I'm going to pitch in there. I'm going to do my normal flips the first however many times, 4 or 5 flips. And then I'm going to get a little weird with it, right? The 6th flip, I'm going to pitch in there. I'm going to let it sit. You just dead stick that sucker. And then the 7th flip, you work it a little bit more aggressively, try and get that reaction strike. So the first however many flips to that target, I'm going to do what I normally do, pitch it in there, hop it a couple times, reel it in, and the goal is to be as efficient as possible first. So if I'm going to get that bite, I'm going to get it pretty quick. And then after that, you try your Alamos, you flip in there, you let it sit, you just make them look at it, okay, didn't work, reel it in, do that a couple times if you want, pitch in there, snap it a couple times without getting snagged, obviously, try not to do that. and try and get that reaction bite. And if it doesn't work, I'm not saying sit on it for 10 minutes, but you know, do what you can in the most efficient way possible while making the most flips, because it's crazy and you guys are going to think I'm nuts, but there's some of you that can attest to this where you're fishing. There's some of you that are going to be able to attest to this, and if you can, drop a comment, right? Give me some reinforcement down here. Let these folks know we're trying to make this the biggest community as possible and help everybody catch more fish. So drop down below what you like to do when the bite gets tough. But guys, if you're in an area that has a lot of fishing pressure, it doesn't matter what kind of structure you're fishing, make a lot of casts, because no matter what the reason is, I don't know, I'm not a fish scientist, they're going to bite it. You know, if you're in the right area, sometimes it just takes a little extra coaxing, a couple different ways of retrieving that bait and working it, and it seems like you're going to get a lot more bites there. Now, the second thing, guys, that I think is huge when doing this is when you're fishing dirty water, okay? When you're fishing really dirty water, and I'm talking like less than 6 inches of visibility, right? Like you're in mud. When you get up there and you're flipping these targets, I think a lot of times they just can't see it and they're not going to search for it, right? So sometimes, you know, when you flip a piece of wood, you know, however many times, sometimes that fish is there, but he's not going to eat it unless it comes 2 or 3 inches away from his face, because then he can just eat it. You know, he doesn't have to go searching. He knows it's there and it's going to get him riled up. But if you're flipping some of these targets, a lot of us get in that habit where you're like, I just got to go. I just got to go, man. Like I got to roll down this bank. I got to keep catching, like do whatever, right? And if they're going to eat it, they're going to eat it. And that's what I get in the mindset all the time of, like, if I put it on there, there's no reason he shouldn't bite. Well, yeah, but if you miss him by 3 inches, he's not going to bite. You got to put it right on his head. So sometimes, especially in dirty water, this technique also applies really well, where if they're not moving, they don't want to move, you got to put it right on their nose, basically hop it into their mouth. This is where if you're on a piece of target, like a target that you're like, yeah, there's probably one on here, or you're in that afternoon lull where you're like, shoot, man, like, let's just lock it down. We're going to glue this flipping stick in our hand. That's another great way. You just make enough flips to that piece of target or that piece of cover to where there is no nook or cranny that you've missed, right? No matter what it is, if it's the good stuff or the bad stuff, make as many flips and you will get more bites. Now, the third thing that I like to look for, especially when doing this, guys, is isolated targets, stuff that like you look at and there's one dock on a bank, right? Or like one boat ramp, or there's one thing that like, you know, has a fish on it, right? Those high percentage targets that are kind of off by themselves, and a lot of people hit them, you know, real quick and they leave. It seems like this also works especially well because a lot of folks hit those because they're easy one-offs. You know, it's a chip shot where, oh, we might as well bounce and hit that really quick and then go. And they make 2 or 3 casts, and that's what a lot of folks will tell you is, oh, you got to stop on those. They're always worth a cast or two. Well, that's what a lot of folks do is they make a cast or two and they bounce, right? So if you can go up on some of those one-off spots, especially like I said, in high pressured areas or when the bite gets tough after your morning, when you're burning bank and you're doing what you need to be doing, some of those one-off spots actually have some fish. And if you just pick apart the whole dang thing, you can pick off a lot more than you normally would, because most guys consider those bonus spots. And by really going through there and making a lot of casts to them and really like over breaking that down, you can catch a lot of those fish that live there, guys. So to wrap things up, dudes, this is not just a flipping thing. Okay, I know I sell jigs, I know I talk about jigs a lot, but this applies to everything, okay? We've done it with buzz baits where, you know, there's one stick out wherever and you cast 3 or 4 times or 5 times or 6 times and finally you get a blow up and you're like, he's been looking at it the whole time. He just went crazy and finally had to eat it. We've had it happen with bladed jigs and crankbaits too, where the best case that I could ever think of, and I wish I had it on video, was we're at a boat ramp. I dropped my buddy off. He had to go take a dump. Like, he's off on his own. And I'm just sitting there, you know, making the same cast, like hanging out, right? Just sitting there messing around. And there was one jetty next to me and I made the same cast like 10 or 12 times. And then finally just the 12th cast, like there's one, and whether he swam up or whether he didn't, you know, if I would have made a couple casts, I'm like, well, there's no fish there. You know, I'm not going to catch that fish, but I'd like to think a lot of these fish see your bait. They're accustomed to baits. They don't want to eat them. They're not hungry. They're too smart. And you drive them crazy enough with your baits present that finally they're like, I can't take it. I'm going to kill this thing. And they put it in their mouth and you reel them straight in. So that is all I've got for you guys today. Like I said, it's not a crazy video. I don't have any wild techniques or trailers or sneaky Japanese secrets to get more bites in pressured areas, guys. The biggest thing is that if you're in an area and you're doing something that you know like they're going to bite it. Like if you're in a tournament where generally it gets one flipping and jig, a great way to win flipping a jig is just to flip a jig at the right stuff a lot more times than everybody else, because everyone gets so wrapped up in the, well, if this was working really good, I'd be getting a bit better on it. And they switch to a wacky rig, or they pivot to something else that's crazy and dumb. Most of the time, if you just glue what's supposed to be working in your hands that you know is going to work, and you make the right cast enough times at the right stuff, you will get those bites, you will do better, and you'll have better days, guys. So keep that in mind. That is all I've got for you. Check out Powerhouse lithium batteries on our website below. Keep an eye out for our Saturday drop, the biggest one we've ever done. This is going to be wild. We've got a bunch of winter jig boxes. They're going to be sick. And I will catch you guys on Saturday for one of the coolest videos that we've ever made. So thank you all for watching. Let me know what you like to do down below. When the bite gets tough, let me know if you do this already. And if you're one of the guys that makes a flip or two to every piece of cover and moves on, start making a couple more flips when you know you're in an area with fish, and you will do a lot better.